Black man on wheelchair, humiliated for getting married to a white lady. What happens next will drop your jaw. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this, and don't forget to share your views in the comment section. Let's get started. Why would you throw your life away like this, Emily? The words cut through the air like a slap. Sarah, Emily's best friend since childhood, leaned forward, her eyes wide with disbelief. Her voice was hushed but sharp, as though she was embarrassed to even be having this conversation in public. Emily sat frozen, the sound of Sarah's words echoing in her mind. She wasn't shocked anymore. She had heard this same argument time and time again, from Sarah, from her other friends, even from her own family. What do you mean? Emily's voice cracked slightly, betraying the calm exterior she tried to project. She knew what Sarah meant. Everyone knew. David, her husband, sat next to her, his hands calmly resting on the wheels of his chair. His dark skin seemed to invite a kind of attention that Emily had never known until they started dating. Now, it was like every glance from a stranger held a hidden judgment. Every whispered word was an insult. "You know what I mean," Sarah whispered, glancing around the cafe as if someone might overhear them. "You had a future, Emily. You had a path, and now you're married to him." She spat the last word as though David wasn't even sitting right there, his eyes dark and unreadable. David didn't flinch. He had faced worse before. In war zones, on city streets, in the very country he had sworn to defend. Yet it always hurt more when it came from someone who claimed to care about Emily. Someone who, in another world, could have been his friend. Sarah's words weren't new, but the pain in Emily's heart twisted deeper each time they came from someone close. Emily's parents had said something similar when she announced she was going to marry David. They didn't openly object. No, they weren't those kinds of people. But the disappointment, the judgment, was there in the tight-lipped smiles, the cold silences during family dinners, the unspoken question, why him? Why not someone else? But Emily never wavered. She had known David since high school, long before the army, long before the accident that put him in that wheelchair. She had loved him back when his legs were strong and his walk was confident, and she still loved him now, maybe even more. She loved him for the man he was, not the image people projected onto him because of his skin color, his wheelchair, or his scars. "Tell her about Afghanistan," Emily said quietly, giving David's hand a gentle squeeze beneath the table. David sighed, his dark eyes flickering with a tired sort of resignation. "It won't change anything, Em. People like her don't care. They see me as one thing, a black man who doesn't belong with you. It doesn't matter what I've done or what I've sacrificed." But Emily couldn't help herself. She wanted Sarah to understand. She needed people to understand that David wasn't just her husband. He was a hero. "David saved lives over there," she said, her voice shaking with emotion. "He's got a medal for it. He was a captain in the army. He almost died serving this country." Sarah rolled her eyes. "I'm not saying he's not a good guy, Em, but come on. Look at your life. You're stuck here, taking care of him, defending him to everyone, even your family. You could have had anything, anyone, but now..." Her voice trailed off as she gestured toward David's wheelchair. The insult was clear, sharp as a blade. David's jaw clenched. He had fought on battlefields where he knew his life could end at any moment, but no war prepared him for this. The quiet racism, the judgment, the way people treated him like he was less than human, less of a man, because of his skin, his injury, because of who he loved. They left the cafe in tense silence. The weight of Sarah's words hung between them like a storm cloud, but neither of them knew how to talk about it. David had always handled these things quietly, with a sort of stoic strength. Emily, on the other hand, wore her heart on her sleeve, her emotions bubbling just beneath the surface, always ready to spill over. As they walked, or rather as David wheeled himself slowly down the sidewalk, Emily found herself growing more and more frustrated. Not just with Sarah, but with the world. The world that judged them, that questioned their love, that assumed her life was somehow less because she chose David. The world that saw his wheelchair before it saw the man. "Why do we always have to fight like this?" she blurted out suddenly. David stopped his wheelchair and looked up at her. His expression was calm, but his eyes betrayed the wariness he carried inside. Because people will always find a reason to hate what they don't understand, he said softly. They see us together and it doesn't fit into their little boxes, so they lash out. Emily's eyes filled with tears. But it's not fair. You're a good man, David. You've done so much for this country, for people who don't even know your name. Why can't they just see you for who you are? David looked down at his hands, resting on the wheels of his chair. Because the world wasn't built that way, Em. It's built to see me as a threat, as something less. And I don't know if we can change that. They kept walking, the conversation lingering in the air between them. As they passed by a small park, a group of men lounging on a bench caught sight of them. Their laughter was loud and careless, the kind of laughter that came from people who had never known struggle. One of them, a large man with a beer can in hand, smirked and called out, "Hey, sweetheart, couldn't find a real man, so you settled for him, huh?" He sneered, nodding toward David. Emily's stomach twisted. She opened her mouth to yell something back, but David spoke first, his voice low and controlled. "You might want to show some respect," he said quietly. "I fought for your right to sit there and run your mouth." The man blinked, clearly surprised that David had spoken up. "You? A soldier? Please, you can't even stand." David's lips tightened. Slowly, he reached into his jacket and pulled out his military ID. "Captain David Marshall, I took a bullet so you could sit there and act like an idiot." The man's smirk faded. His friends grew silent, watching awkwardly as David held up the ID, his eyes hard and unflinching. The man looked down at his beer, suddenly ashamed. Without another word, he turned away, embarrassed by the realization that the man he had just insulted was a hero. Later that night, Emily sat beside David on their couch, her hand resting gently on his leg. The weight of the day pressed down on her, the anger and frustration still simmering just beneath the surface. "I don't understand why people have to be like this," she whispered, her voice trembling with exhaustion. "Why can't they just let us be?" David stared at the ceiling, his thoughts far away. "Because they're afraid," he said quietly. "Afraid of what we represent, a world where love doesn't have to fit into their narrow view. A world where someone like me can be with someone like you. It scares them." "But it shouldn't," Emily cried, her voice rising in frustration. "I'm so tired of explaining our love to people. I'm tired of losing friends, of being judged, of everything." David turned to her, his eyes softening. "I know, Em, but we can't let them win. We can't let their hate destroy what we have. We have to keep fighting, not with anger, but with love. That's how we change things. By showing them that love is stronger than their ignorance." Emily nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I just wish it didn't have to be so hard." David smiled sadly. Nothing worth having ever comes easy. Over the next few weeks, things only grew more intense. Emily's friends stopped calling, stopped texting. They drifted away, leaving her to navigate the storm alone with David. Her family, too, grew colder, more distant. They didn't say it outright, but their disapproval was clear. They didn't understand why she stayed with him, why she kept choosing him over a life that could have been easier, smoother. But Emily never wavered. Through the cold stares, the whispered judgments, the hurtful comments, she stood by David. And slowly, as word spread about who David was, what he had done for his country, people started to change. One afternoon, as they sat in the park, a young couple approached them. "If you've watched this far, leave a 100 in the comments section, because you are type of person that likes to finish what they started. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to get notified whenever we drop new videos." Now back to the story. The woman, holding a baby, smiled nervously. "I just wanted to say," she said softly, "it's inspiring to see you two. My husband is Hispanic, and we've had our share of struggles, but seeing you, it gives me hope." David smiled warmly. "Thank you," he said. "Just keep loving each other. The world will catch up eventually."